The elevator to the 40th floor moved too fast. Noah gripped his toolkit tighter and watched the numbers climb. 36, 37, 38. He'd worked at Ward Global for 3 years and had never been this high in the building. His usual territory was the 3rd floor where regular employees sat in their cubicles and nobody noticed when he crawled under desks to fix connection issues. The 40th floor was different. Executive territory, where assistants wore suits that cost more than his monthly rent, and the air itself carried a different weight. Noah had heard stories about the top floor. It was where Celine Ward's office occupied the entire northern wing, where floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city like she owned every building in sight, which, to be fair, she probably did own a decent percentage of them. The elevator chimed. The doors opened onto a reception area that looked like it belonged in an art museum. Marble floors stretched in every direction, polished to a shine that reflected the recessed lighting. A reception desk made of dark wood gleamed under soft light. A woman in her 50s looked up from behind the desk. Her dark skin was flawless, her silver locks pulled back elegantly. Her expression was pleasant, but efficient. "Noah Hale, IT department," he said, holding up his badge. "Miss Ward is waiting. 3rd door on the left. She has meetings starting in 45 minutes, so she'll need the system running before then." Noah nodded and started walking. Through the windows on his right, he could see the entire city spread out below. From up here, the traffic and the chaos all disappeared into something almost peaceful. Cars became toys, people became dots, problems became invisible. He wondered if that was why executives preferred the high floors. He found the 3rd door. It was already open. Celine Ward stood behind her desk with her back to him, phone pressed to her ear. She was tall, taller than he'd expected from company photos. Her dark hair was pulled back in twists that looked effortless, but probably required a professional. Her deep brown skin seemed to glow in the morning light streaming through the windows. She wore a charcoal suit fitted to perfection. "I don't care what the projections say," she was saying, her voice cool and controlled. "If the Tokyo office can't deliver the numbers they promised, we restructure. Send me the breakdown by noon." Noah stood in the doorway, unsure whether to announce himself. He studied the office instead: clean lines, carefully curated books, complete absence of personal photographs. Celine finished her call and turned around. Her eyes swept over him with the kind of assessment that made him feel like a balance sheet being reviewed. "You're from IT," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am. Noah Hale. I got the call about a system malfunction. It froze during a video conference with the Singapore team. Won't restart properly." She gestured toward the massive desk where 3 monitors sat dark and lifeless. "This is the 3rd time this month. I need it fixed permanently." "I'll take a look." Celine stepped back but didn't leave. She stood near the windows, arms crossed, watching him work with focused intensity. Most executives left the room when IT showed up. Her presence created a pressure Noah wasn't used to. He forced himself to focus, powered down the system completely, checked connections, looked for hardware issues. Everything seemed fine. He initiated a hard restart and waited. The monitors flickered to life one by one. The main screen loaded her desktop. Clean, organized, nothing personal except... The background image started to load. Noah's hand froze over the keyboard. It wasn't supposed to be visible. Normally, the system would have loaded straight to her login screen, but something in the crash had disrupted the sequence, bypassed the security protocol, and now the background image filled the entire center monitor. It was a photograph of Celine by a lake. She wore jeans and a simple white shirt, standing on a wooden dock with water stretching out behind her. No makeup that he could see. Her natural hair was out, a beautiful crown of coils framing her face. She was smiling, not the controlled expression from company photos, but something genuine and unguarded. The sunlight caught her dark skin in a way that made her look younger, softer. Noah reached for the keyboard to navigate away. "Stop." Celine's voice cut through the quiet office like a blade. Noah's hand stopped. He looked up, and found her standing much closer than before. She'd moved silently across the carpet, near enough that he could smell something subtle. Sandalwood, maybe. She was staring at the screen, at her own image. Her expression was unreadable, but something in her stillness suggested she was seeing more than a photograph. "You saw it," she said. Not a question. "Yes, I'm sorry. The system loaded incorrectly. The security sequence was disrupted. I wasn't trying to—" "I know you weren't trying." Celine moved closer to the desk, eyes still fixed on the screen. "That was taken 3 years ago. I forgot I'd set it as the background." Noah didn't know what to say. He'd seen things on people's computers before. Personal emails, embarrassing browser histories, love letters never sent. He'd learned to pretend he hadn't seen anything. That was the unwritten rule of IT work. Be invisible, be forgettable. But Celine wasn't giving him the option to pretend. She looked at him directly, and he saw something unexpected in her expression. Not anger, not embarrassment. Something closer to curiosity mixed with vulnerability. "What did you think?" she asked. "I'm sorry?" "Of the photograph. What did you think when you saw it?" This wasn't how interactions with executives went. They didn't ask IT technicians for opinions on personal photographs. "I don't think my opinion matters, Miss Ward," he said carefully. "But you have one. Everyone has opinions, they just don't usually say them out loud, especially not to me." The last 3 words carried weight. He heard what she wasn't saying, that people filtered everything around her. He looked at the photograph again, at the version of Celine Ward who smiled like she meant it, who stood on a dock in jeans like an ordinary person. "It's a good photograph," he said finally. "You look happy in it." "Happy?" Celine repeated the word like she was testing its weight. "Is that all?" There was something in her tone that felt like a challenge. He could play it safe, give her the comfortable answer that meant nothing, or he could tell her the truth. "You look real," Noah said, "like a person, not a position." The silence that followed felt enormous. Noah immediately regretted his honesty. He'd crossed a line. He'd said something too personal to a woman who could end his career with a phone call. Instead, Celine turned away from the screen and looked at him with an expression he couldn't read. Her mask had slipped, showing something raw underneath. "Do you think I'm beautiful?" The question landed like a physical object dropped into the room. Noah stared at her, certain he'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "It's a simple question." Celine's voice was calm, clinical. "In that photograph, do you think I'm beautiful?" This had to be some kind of test. CEOs didn't ask IT technicians about their appearance. There were laws about this kind of thing, HR protocols, 100 reasons why this conversation shouldn't be happening. But she was waiting for an answer. And something in her eyes told him she would know if he lied. "Yes," he said quietly. "You're beautiful in that photograph, but not because of anything to do with how you look." Celine's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Explain that." "You look peaceful," Noah said, the words coming easier now. "Like you're somewhere you actually want to be. Not performing for anyone, just existing. That's what makes it a good photograph. Not your face or your clothes or the lighting, just that you look like yourself." Celine stood very still. Then something shifted in her face, the controlled mask cracking, revealing something that looked almost like relief. "No one has said that to me in a very long time," she said softly. "That I look like myself." She walked back to the windows, putting distance between them. When she spoke again, her voice had returned to its usual controlled tone, but something in it sounded different, less sharp. "Finish the login sequence. I need to access those files before the meetings." "Yes, ma'am." Noah turned back to the computer. The photograph disappeared, replaced by the standard login interface. He verified that all systems were running properly. "Everything's running normally now. The crash was caused by a conflict between 2 background applications. I've disabled the less essential one." "Thank you, Mr. Hale." Noah gathered his toolkit and headed for the door. He was almost in the hallway when her voice stopped him. "Noah." He turned back. She was still standing by the windows, backlit by morning sun. "Thank you for being honest with me," she said. "Most people aren't." Noah nodded, then left, closing the door quietly behind him. The elevator ride back down felt like descending from another planet. Noah kept replaying the conversation. "Do you think I'm beautiful?" Who asks that? Who asks that of a stranger? An employee? Someone lonely, he realized. Someone who'd been surrounded by yes-men for so long that they'd forgotten what honesty sounded like. He spent the rest of the day moving between floors, fixing computers, resetting passwords. His daughter Lila texted him at 3 to remind him about parent-teacher conferences. He replied with a thumbs up. Normal day. Except he couldn't forget the way Celine Ward had looked at her own photograph, like she'd forgotten that version of herself existed. Noah picked Lila up from school at 3:30. She climbed into his 10-year-old Honda with her backpack trailing behind her, her braids bouncing, already talking about her science project. "We get to pick partners, and Maya said she wants to work with me, and we're going to do something about butterflies or possibly volcanoes." Noah pulled away from the curb, half listening while his mind drifted back to the 40th floor. "Dad? Are you listening?" "Yeah. Maya's your partner, butterflies or volcanoes." Lila gave him the look she'd perfected over her 8 years, the one that said she knew when he was only pretending to pay attention. "I said Maya might be moving to California." "Oh." Noah forced himself to focus. "That's hard. I'm sorry." "It's okay. She hasn't moved yet. People change their minds sometimes, right? Sometimes they do." The parent-teacher conference went fine. Lila was doing well in most subjects, struggling slightly with fractions, but nothing serious. Her teacher said Lila was creative, thoughtful, sometimes too quiet, but always engaged. Normal evening. Dinner was chicken nuggets because Noah had forgotten to go grocery shopping. Homework was a worksheet about ecosystems. Bath time was bubbles and a rubber duck. Except when Lila fell asleep that night, Noah found himself sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open, staring at the Ward Global website, at the professional photograph of Celine Ward on the About Us page. Perfect lighting, perfect control. Nothing like the woman on the dock. The next morning started the same as every other morning. Noah woke at 6:15, made coffee, woke Lila at 7, supervised breakfast, helped with her braids, packed her lunch, dropped her at school by 7:45. At 9:45, his desk phone rang. "IT department, this is Noah." "Mr. Hale, this is Rachel Henley from Executive Administration. Miss Ward would like to see you in her office at 10 Farrari." The words landed like cold water down his spine. "Is there a technical issue?" Miss Ward didn't specify. By 10 Farrari, Noah had convinced himself he was about to be fired. He'd crossed a line yesterday. She'd had time to reconsider, to feel embarrassed, and now she was going to make sure he couldn't tell anyone about it. The elevator ride to the 40th floor felt longer, more ominous. He knocked on Celine's door. "Come in." She stood at the windows again. Same position as yesterday, but something in her posture was different, less rigid, more contemplative. "Close the door. Sit down." Noah sat. He waited. Celine turned and walked to her desk but didn't sit. She looked at him with those dark brown eyes that seemed to see everything. "I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to answer it honestly." "Okay." "Yesterday when you saw that photograph, why did you tell me the truth?" He'd been prepared for termination, for accusations, not this. "Because you asked," he said, "and you seemed like you actually wanted to know." Most people, when asked a question by their CEO, tell her what they think she wants to hear. It's the safe choice. You didn't do that. Why not? "Because you can probably tell when people are lying. And because I figured if you asked the question, you already knew all the comfortable answers. Maybe you wanted to hear something different." Something flickered in Celine's expression. She sat down. "Do you know why I started this company, Mr. Hale?" "No, ma'am. Because I wanted to build something that mattered. I was 24. I had an idea about connecting supply chains across continents, about making global logistics accessible to smaller businesses. Everyone told me it was impossible. She looked down at her hands. 20 years later, I have everything I was supposed to want: success, wealth, influence, board members who agree with everything I say. And I can't remember the last time anyone spoke to me like I was a human being instead of a balance sheet. This wasn't the polished CEO from the website. This was the woman from the photograph peeking through the armor. That photograph was taken at a lake in Vermont, she continued. I rented a cabin for a week, completely alone. No phone calls, no meetings, just me and the water and the silence. It was the last time I felt like myself. Noah stayed quiet. He understood that she needed to talk. When you told me I looked real, I realized you'd identified exactly what I'd lost. I kept replaying our conversation, trying to figure out if you had an angle, blackmail maybe, or some kind of manipulation. I don't have an angle, Noah said. I fix computers. That's my angle. The corner of her mouth lifted slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. I know. I had my assistant pull your employment file. 3 years at Ward Global. Good reviews. Single father, 1 daughter, age 8. You've never asked for a promotion or raised any flags. The fact that she'd investigated him should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like caution. You're invisible, Celine said. You do your job well, but nobody notices you. Why is that? Because I have a daughter who needs stability more than I need recognition. Keeping my head down means I keep my job. I keep my health care. That's enough. Is it? What do you mean? Is it enough? To be invisible? To spend your life in the shadows while other people move ahead? Noah thought about it. Really thought about it. I used to want more, he admitted. Before my daughter was born, before my wife left, I had ambitions. But then real life happened, and I realized that being somebody doesn't mean anything if you're not there for the people who need you. Celine studied him. Then she opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. I'm launching a new internal project. Very small team, very confidential. It's focused on restructuring our approach to employee wellness and company culture. The board has been pushing for improvements. Our turnover rate is too high, and I've lost touch with what regular employees actually experience. Noah looked at the unmarked folder. I'd like you to join the team, Celine said. I'm an IT technician. I don't know anything about employee wellness. No, but you know what it's like to be invisible in this building. You know what regular employees experience, the frustrations, the small indignities. She leaned forward. And you're honest. That's what I need. I have plenty of experts. What I don't have is people who will tell me the truth. Why me? There are thousands of employees. Because yesterday you looked at me and saw a person. Everyone else sees a position, a title, a source of approval or fear. But you saw someone who looked peaceful in a photograph by a lake, and you told me so. That's the perspective I need. Noah thought about Lila, about stability, about risk. He thought about Celine's question, do you think I'm beautiful? And the way she'd looked when he answered honestly. What would this involve? Meetings, 2 or 3 times a week, mostly evenings. You'd keep your regular position during the day. The team is small, 5 people, completely confidential. Additional compensation? 15% increase to your base salary, plus a project completion bonus. 15%. That was Lila's college fund becoming real. That was the difference between scraping by and actually saving. Can I think about it? Of course, let me know by the end of the week. Noah picked up the folder. I'm not pulling you out of your comfortable position as some experiment, Celine said, her tone gentler. I'm asking because you have something valuable to offer, and because I think you might benefit from being seen. Noah stood up. He should say something professional. Instead, he said, you should go back to that lake sometime, the one in Vermont. Celine looked at him, surprised. You looked happy there, Noah continued. Maybe you need that more than another successful project. He left before she could respond. He spent the next 3 days reading through the folder. It outlined the scope, confidentiality requirements, meeting schedule. At night, after Lila fell asleep, he weighed his options. The safe choice was obvious: decline, stay invisible, risk nothing. But he kept thinking about Celine's question. Is it enough? Friday morning, he made his decision. At 8:30, Noah called the number on Rachel Henley's card. This is Noah Hale from IT. I need to speak with Miss Ward about the project proposal. One moment, please. Mr. Hale. Celine's voice came through. Have you made a decision? Yes, ma'am. I'd like to accept. Brief silence. When Celine spoke again, her tone had shifted slightly, almost warm. I'm glad. The first meeting is Monday evening at 6, conference room B on the 40th floor. Can you arrange childcare? Noah thought about his neighbor, Mrs. Delgado, who sometimes watched Lila. I can make it work. Good. And Mr. Hale? Yes? Thank you for taking the risk. Monday evening, Noah dropped Lila at Mrs. Delgado's apartment at 5:30. Big meeting? Mrs. Delgado asked. Something like that. She'll be fine. We're going to make cookies. Lila hugged him goodbye and disappeared inside, already asking about chocolate chips. Noah took the elevator to the 40th floor at 5:45. Through the glass walls of the conference room, he could see 3 people already seated. He recognized Adrian Moss from Legal, a sharp-looking man in his mid-40s with dark skin and salt and pepper stubble. The other 2 were strangers. Noah pushed open the door. All 3 looked up. Adrian stood and extended his hand. You must be Noah Hale, Adrian Moss, Legal Department. They shook hands. This is Kendra Lowe from Human Resources and Theo Vance from Operations. Noah shook hands with both, noting the curiosity in their expressions. They were probably wondering why an IT technician was on a confidential project with department heads. The door opened, and Celine walked in. Everyone stood automatically. She waved them back down and took her seat at the head of the table. She'd changed from her usual suit into something slightly less formal, a silk blouse, dark slacks. Thank you all for agreeing to be part of this project. I know evening meetings are an imposition, but the confidentiality requires discretion. She looked around the table. Adrian, you understand the legal frameworks around employment. Kendra, you have direct insight into employee concerns. Theo, you know the operational realities of implementing change. She turned to Noah. And Mr. Hale is here because he understands what it's like to be invisible in this company. Everyone turned to look at him. The goal is simple, Celine continued. I want to identify why talented people leave, why morale is declining, and what we can actually do to fix it. But I don't want surface-level solutions or filtered data. I want to understand the real problems. The meeting lasted 2 hours. They discussed methodology, timelines, interview protocols. Adrian raised legal concerns. Kendra talked about patterns in exit interviews. Theo described operational constraints. Noah mostly listened. He was out of his depth. But then Celine asked for his input. Mr. Hale, from your perspective, what do regular employees actually talk about? What are the complaints you hear? He almost deflected. But then he remembered why she'd asked him to be here. Most people I work with don't think anyone at this level cares what they think, he said. They assume any complaints go into a black hole. They've stopped bothering because nothing ever changes. The room went quiet. Celine leaned forward. Give me an example. 6 months ago, someone on my floor submitted a suggestion about the parking garage lighting. It's too dim in certain sections, especially in winter when people are leaving after dark. Women especially don't feel safe walking to their cars. The suggestion went to facilities management. Nothing happened. The person never heard back. Now, when people ask if they should bother making suggestions, he tells them not to waste their time. That's a facilities issue, Theo said. Not really what we're addressing here. It's exactly what we're addressing, Celine said sharply. That kind of dismissal is why people stop engaging. The parking garage lighting isn't the point. The point is that an employee took the time to identify a problem and got nothing in response. The rest of the meeting shifted. Noah found himself talking more than expected, about the small indignities regular employees dealt with. The way executive assistants treated anyone below a certain pay grade, the third-floor break room waiting 4 months for a working microwave while the executive floor had full catering. Celine didn't dismiss any of it. She took notes, asked follow-up questions. When the meeting ended at 8:15, everyone filed out except Celine. Noah gathered his things slowly. "You did well tonight," she said without looking up. "I mostly just complained about parking garage lighting and microwaves. You identified a systemic problem with how this company handles employee feedback. That's valuable." She looked up. "How did it feel?" "Uncomfortable. Like I was betraying everyone on the third floor by sitting at this table." "But you stayed." "I stayed." Celine stood. "The discomfort means you're doing something real." They walked toward the elevators together. The 40th floor was empty now, just dim lighting and the distant hum of building systems. "How's your daughter?" Celine asked. The question surprised him. "She's good. Worried about her friend moving to California, but otherwise good. That's hard at that age, losing friends." "Yeah, but she's resilient." "What was her mother like?" Another surprising question. Personal. "We met in college. She was brilliant, ambitious, always moving. When Lila was 2, she decided she needed more than what I could give her. She moved to Seattle for a job, and the visits got less frequent, and eventually, they just stopped." "I'm sorry." "It is what it is. Lila doesn't remember her much, which is both a mercy and a tragedy." They reached the elevator bank. Celine pressed the call button. "I meant what I said," she said, looking straight ahead. "About you seeing me. I haven't felt seen in a very long time." The elevator arrived. They stepped inside. Celine pressed buttons for the ground floor and Noah's floor. They rode down in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who understood something about each other that didn't need words. When the doors opened on the third floor, Noah stepped out and turned back. "Same time next Monday," she said. "I'll be here." The doors closed. The weeks that followed fell into a new rhythm: regular work during the day, project meetings on Monday and Thursday evenings. Noah interviewed employees from different departments, compiled their feedback, organized it into themes. He discovered he was good at getting people to talk, maybe because he was invisible enough that they didn't feel threatened, or maybe because he actually listened. The third meeting, Kendra shared data that shocked everyone. 30% of departures had cited company culture as a primary reason for leaving. The fifth meeting, Theo proposed structural changes that Adrian immediately flagged as legally problematic. The seventh meeting, Celine asked Noah about implementing an anonymous feedback system, and his answer, that people wouldn't use it unless they believed action would actually be taken, influenced the entire direction. Slowly, Noah stopped feeling like an imposter. He found his voice. His perspective mattered, not despite his invisible position, but because of it. He saw things that people at higher levels couldn't see, and slowly, in the margins between professional discussions, he and Celine started having conversations that had nothing to do with company culture. She asked about Lila, what she wanted to be when she grew up, currently marine biologist or ice cream shop owner, how Noah managed single parenthood. He asked if she'd thought more about Vermont. She told him about the pressure of board meetings where everyone wanted something from her. He told her about the exhaustion of being a single parent who never felt like he was doing enough. They were becoming something neither of them had a name for yet. Not friends, exactly. The power imbalance made that complicated. Not colleagues in the traditional sense. Something more honest. Something that had started with a photograph by a lake and a question neither of them could forget. On a Thursday evening in the 8th week, after everyone else had left, Celine walked Noah to the elevator like she'd started doing. "I'm going back to Vermont next month," she said. "The cabin by the lake. 4 days, no phone, no meetings. That's good. You should do that. I wanted you to know why I'll miss our Thursday meeting." The elevator arrived. They both looked at it, neither moving. "Thank you for this," Celine said quietly. "For taking the risk, for being honest, for not treating me like a position." "Thank you for seeing me," Noah replied. for making me visible. She smiled then, a real smile that reminded him of the photograph by the lake. "I'll bring back a photo," she said, "so you can tell me if I still look like myself." Then she stepped into the elevator and the doors closed. Noah stood there for a moment, understanding that something had shifted between them, something that went beyond professional collaboration, something that felt like the beginning of something neither of them had expected to find. He took the stairs down, picked up his things, drove to Mrs. Delgado's apartment, collected a sleepy Lila who'd stayed up past her bedtime eating cookies, carried her to the car, drove home, put her to bed. Normal routine, normal life, but he didn't feel invisible anymore, and somewhere 40 floors above him, he thought maybe Selene didn't feel quite so alone. The story didn't end with declarations or conclusions. It ended with understanding, with connection, with two people who'd found something real in the space between their very different worlds. With a smile that looked like a photograph by a lake, and a question that had changed everything. "Do you think I'm beautiful?" "You look like yourself." And that, Noah thought as he turned off the lights in Lila's room, was more than enough for now.